Welcome to Severe Thunderstorm Outlooks. I publish this whenever there are consecutive days of severe weather or really significant days that may add up to a big potential. I am pleased to report that the overall severe weather threat is pretty low over the next couple of days. In fact, non-existent on a couple of days. Meteorologist Ted Keller, let's start with today. Severe weather risk is focused mostly in eastern Colorado. We have a level 1, which is a marginal risk that goes from Nebraska down to Texas, another little area there in South Virginia. But certainly this area in yellow here, which is what is referred to as the slight risk from a couple years ago, still is actually, mostly eastern Colorado and largely in a lesser populated area of Colorado. But nevertheless, there are some cities there. And so, severe weather takes three forms: tornadoes, hail, and wind. And so let's look at each of those and see how significant they are. On the tornado risk side, 2% chance of a tornado within 25 miles, again in the exact same area. So one could accurately say that that level 2 area is put there with this tornado risk in mind, certainly. So you can see the major metropolitan corridor here is not technically in that, but close. All right. Nadocast does put that same general risk bubble out, and also curiously kind of puts a little level 3% there down around Houston and getting into parts of Louisiana for today. Going back to Colorado, though, we do have a hail risk, a 15% chance of a severe hailstone, which is a 1-inch hailstone or larger, again mirroring that exact slight risk level 2 area. So tornadoes and hail. Wind is there. But it's not the major concern. It certainly can happen. I do want to apologize that it says hail day right here, and that's exactly what this Nadocast product is, not the wind, sorry. But it does actually put a 30% chance of a hailstone in the severe category, a lot closer to Denver. And there's even a few blotches. See where this hatched areas are here, and here. That's actually a 10% risk of a 2-inch hailstone or larger. So interesting. And, getting into late May and June, that's where Colorado tends to excel, hail. So we're getting kind of into that season, I think, for them. The tornado risk from CSU, Colorado State University, actually. And, they're looking at it out their eastern window. And tornado risk the same with hail. The only difference is this is extended down into more of western Texas. Let's go to Friday here, where we have a level 2 there in Texas and parts of Oklahoma. Again, a marginal risk in the state of Kentucky, or at least mostly so. And then we'll come back to this risk here from Amarillo, there along I-44 and I-40. Those areas under risk, and down not quite to Wichita Falls, into parts of northwest Texas as well. This apparently is going to be a severe hail risk. The tornado risk really isn't showing up very much for this particular event. We'll see what happens tomorrow morning, but that again mirrors the slight risk. If I take a look at CSU's products, though, it does put the hail about where the SPC thinks. Doesn't really talk about tornadoes. There's a little blotch right there and then the Texas Panhandle. But interestingly enough, we have this small disturbance going through the Ohio and Tennessee River Valley, so there is a 2% chance of a tornado in that area, not outlined by the SPC. So that's Friday. Saturday, the SPC has nothing. They show no severe weather potential at all, just thunderstorm areas. And then if we look at CSU's idea for Saturday, it moves that tornado risk more to the east. And then the hail risk again shows up in the Texas Panhandle. So some thunderstorms that are rocking Colorado today and the western part of Oklahoma and the Texas Panhandle for Friday and Saturday. That would be a good summation. And then finally, if we look at the supercell composite for this coming week, by no surprise, it is focusing those areas we just talked about here. It does emphasize South Texas a little bit more on the supercell scale of things. And then May 22nd through June 3rd, almost the same area, really. And then look at this, is starting to show up in Montana now a little bit more. There's a more active jet stream, but it's concentrated right here. So it's not really a broad trough that's setting up per se, which is good for severe weather in the plains. But there's a kind of a separate area here, and then a southern stream little area right there. So two little separate areas are showing up in the long-range models at 500 millibars. And then June 4 through the 10th, it looks like the threat comes back to the Central Plains, but again, the week 3 composite of this is by definition, when you do weather forecasting, the more out into the future you go, the weaker the forecast, that this oscillates around quite a bit. Actually, it was much more intense when I looked at it from the overnight hours than compared to this morning update. So we'll see what happens, but it does look as if, generally speaking, we can kind of look at troughiness out here for the next couple weeks, but a lot weaker and maybe a little more segmented.